I do want to go, and I'll go to you first, Mike. Give me just your assessment of Mauricio Pochettino and his time at PSG, as he's obviously, on his way out. He did win the cup double. He did win the league. He took PSG to the semifinals of the Champions League. I believe only Thomas Tuchel was the only one that could better that. Is that right,
LME, you could win the cup double.
Yeah, I was about to say.
hey, by the way, I think I could win the Champions League with PSG. It's one of those drunken conversations as well.
Yeah,
Mike, okay, so talk about Pochettino based on what JJ just said. Was it basically just a walk in the park for him and not good enough from the Argentinian manager at Paris Saint-Germain?
I think he had to deal with elements that previous managers have never had to deal with. Yes, superstars have been coming to PSG, but the arrival of both Lionel Messi and Sergio Ramos, I wonder at what point were players forced upon him. The Messi situation in particular, I think maybe the understanding was, hey, Messi's Argentinian, Pochettino's Argentinian, maybe there might be some mutual respect there, but I think it was just too much for him to handle, and rightfully so. A manager a la Zidane would be better equipped from his track record at Real Madrid, as you said before. But Poch ain't Zidane. Poch is still a good manager. You saw how they lined up against Real Madrid, and they were so close. They put a game and a half together where they looked like one of the best teams in Europe. And those are the moments that have gotten away from Poch. You saw it with him at Tottenham, where they were so close, and then something psychological happens with the team, with him, where it all just goes south. And I really hope that this won't be the defining chapter. We know that it's not going to be the defining chapter. I think leagues like La Liga might be in store for him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Michael. JJ, because I think about his Espanyol days, actually. I think Pochettino is at his best when he has a team that's hungry. And a different type of hunger to PSG, right? Somebody like teams that want to prove to themselves. Espanyol, and that's why he went to Southampton and stuff. How would you assess his time at PSG? Somebody that covers this club inside and out.
Underwhelming. I agree with Mike. I do still think that there is a very good coach there. I just don't think in hindsight it was a very good fit with PSG at all. I think unfortunately Pochettino talked up such a strong game that when he arrived, expectations were sky high. And a lot of everything that he talked up was basically blown away in the first 6 months, when I think people realized the penny dropped that for Pochettino returning to PSG actually wasn't this emotional homecoming that had been built up, even with his time as Spurs coach. And also there was very little effort to speak French. Obviously there was little left over from his time spent in France, where he was PSG captain. He also went and played for Bordeaux as well. So I think many people were feeling shortchanged that, and the fact that Pochettino, wasn't committed maybe enough to the project to want to actually move his family and his life, to the French capital. So it suggested that he was always targeting a short-term stay. Then there was the fact that it was PSG who took up the option to extend his contract, not him, sort of negotiating that extended stay with PSG. So it almost felt like a marriage of convenience at first, and then a marriage of inconvenience for the final season. I'd say that Pochettino should have achieved more in terms of trophies. But then again, when you look at the coaches that have come in since Laurent Blanc, you could make an argument that a lot of them have underwhelmed, with the exception of Thomas Tuchel, who got them over that hump, got them to the Champions League final, and had them, at least on paper, still dominating domestically.
Why is this, JJ? Why is this happening to PSG? Is it the pressure? Is that it? Is it the fact that this is one of the most richest, wealthiest clubs in the world after Newcastle, of course, Man City, etc.? Is that it? Is it a lack of understanding French culture? What is it? And what is it? Is because Galtier coming in because he knows French football so well? Do they think that's going to be the answer? What's going on? Who can unlock this PSG talent?
I think a lot of it is down to just respect from the players, respect from the staff towards the domestic league. People can say what they want about PSG playing in Ligue 1 and Ligue 1's strengths, its weaknesses. At the end of the day, it's PSG's domestic league. Nothing is going to change that anytime soon. I mean, at least not for the better. I hope that we don't see the Super League happening anytime soon. But that's really the only thing that could change the fact that PSG play the bulk of their matches in France and in Ligue 1. So there's no point sort of moaning about it. Instead, when people say to me, "Oh, PSG walk, the French league and the French Cup every season," when was the last time outside of COVID that they actually won all of the domestic titles. So it's quite a while ago now. So I think that PSG need to get back to being dominant domestically in the way that they were under Laurent Blanc, when they had guys like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Thiago Motta, Blaise Matuidi, Maxwell, Thiago Silva, guys that sort of regulated their own dressing room and, gave French football the kind of minimum level of respect it needs. Because at the end of the day, okay, a lot of them weren't there to be successful in France and in Ligue 1. They were all chasing the Champions League dream, but at least they took it seriously enough to ensure that PSG won absolutely everything every season because they wanted to win. And that is the mentality that PSG are now trying to capture. Whether Galtier is the guy to bring that in or not, or to foster that, we'll have to wait and see. But the one thing that I will say about Galtier is he's one of the few people that Zlatan chose to respect from his time in French football, recognized a strong adversary when he saw him. And Zlatan also had massive respect for Laurent Blanc's assistant manager, Jean-Louis Gasset, who was basically the de facto coach for PSG the majority of the time, because Blanc was one of those managers who prefers to distance himself from his players. So there were very few people. Zoumana Kamara, who's now in PSG's youth setup, another one of them, who earned the respect of somebody from that different era of the game. And I think Galtier has the potential to possibly bring in that kind of chemistry, helped by the fact that Kylian Mbappe, who's PSG's star man, absolutely craves that level of seriousness for the project.
I think a lot of it comes down to the pressure on one trophy, the UEFA Champions League. And when you have so much pressure being eyed towards that trophy, it makes everything else obsolete. It's like when in life, when so many things are going well your way, but you have this ambition, this goal that trumps everything else, nothing is good enough. And if you're a manager and you're taking this job, you're coming in knowing that there's a target on your back if you don't deliver in year one, that your job's in question. Well, that pressure then filters into uncertainty in that locker room. Now, if you shift the movement away from trying to buy up superstars, the Harlem Globetrotters of soccer, to achieve this Champions League trophy, and you start building a culture. When Zlatan was there, when this project started of revamping PSG into a European giant, you had a culture. Zlatan, Thiago Silva, there were culture builders in that. Carlo Ancelotti built a culture that was a core. And, they didn't turn the corner quite yet with that group, but that was more of a team. There's more of a togetherness in that group than there is in modern day PSG soccer. And I think until those things are addressed and some of the expectations are dwindled down into, life-size things, then I think it's going to be just asking way too much for just about any manager.
I've got a quick question for you guys, and we know how much talent there is in that PSG team, and I think Mike has a very valid point. But if that kind of pressure and that expectation has trickled down to the players, obviously they've cracked at times in the Champions League. Now, as good as they are, does that mean you have to sweep the decks with basically anybody who's been associated long-term with that kind of failure? And I'm talking about the Marquinhoses, the Marco Verrattis of the team, guys who mentally, I've only really known PSG as this team that kind of chokes, on the biggest stage.
I would say no. There's Marquinhos I would keep because he's actually gotten better since the likes of Thiago Silva has left. I mean, this guy is scoring goals, big goals for them in the Champions League. That run to the final, he was a pivotal figure. I know Neymar and Mbappe got a lot of plaudits, but he was the guy who was delivering behind the scenes, and he's now become the captain, and he's delivering for the Brazilian national team. I'm glad you mentioned Marco Verratti, because at what point do they move away from Marco Verratti? This PSG team, talk about culture setting with contracts. There's so many guys who are part of the old guard now, who keep getting their contracts extended, and they're bringing in new stars. So it's like you're building this molehill of just talented players. You got Wijnaldum, who doesn't look like a fit, but these guys are all on big money. Ander Herrera is still there somehow, doesn't play many games. And I think it's at what point do you move forward from saying, you know what, if we're going to move this project forward, we have to get rid of some of these players because it's just amassing talent, and there's an overload of talent at this club.
Yeah, it's such a tough question because when I think of PSG, I almost can't even think about trying to make a comparison with any other club. When you try and change culture, it's a step-by-step process, but at the same time, it's almost like using players as an scapegoat, because I don't think that's the issue. I think whether Barquinhos stays or goes is not the issue. Whether Verratti stays or goes is not the issue. The issue, I feel, is like somebody needs to come in and identify that as PSG's number one problem. And I don't think Pochettino did it, to your point, Jonathan Johnson, on how he came in. I don't think many managers before that could do it. Maybe Galtier can be the one because, the respect that he commands. It's going to be an intriguing preseason, and they have the tools to do it. That's the frustrating thing. It's just to see, can they essentially win the coveted trophy, which is the Champions League. But we will have to wait and see.